This is No Place Like Home in Conversation With, a podcast exploring the creative side of football by NPLH Studio. I'm Joseph Fordham, and each episode I speak with the people shaping how we see the game. Okay, take one. Domo Wells is a creative director and founder of LA-based sports apparel and design company Dead Dirt. She shares her journey from childhood sketches and cutting up Barbie clothes to designing groundbreaking apparel for NWSL, revealing how self-confidence and a fearless desire to challenge the status quo fueled her evolution. Drawing from her streetwear roots, experiences as a touring DJ, and a deep passion for regional culture, Domo developed a distinctive style that has helped craft authentic, impactful identities. There's also a mini skincare tutorial thrown in there. If you're an aspiring designer or entrepreneur, this episode is your blueprint for following your purpose and redefining what's possible. Enjoy. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good. Very grateful as well that you managed to shift this around a little bit.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. How's your day going over there?
So far, so good. A little slow, but we're in the middle of rollout, so we had our second piece of content go up this morning, so I've just been watching that.
All go. I imagine you're wearing a lot of different hats whilst all this goes on, right?
Always. 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 I'm the whole team some days.
There's a famous sitcom over here called Little Britain. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but there's a sketch where the character writes the theme tune, sings the theme tune, all of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
That'll be you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You seen that TikTok where it's like a team meeting and then it's just like clones of yourselves, you know?
Perfect. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Also, very grateful that we managed to get this in. I know that you've got a lot going on, especially since the Dead NWSL collaboration kicked off. And yeah, this is something I've been very keen to get in, and I'm very grateful that we could do that. So thank you.
I appreciate the patience. I know this was a long time in the making, so
No, not at all. And you are looking remarkably fresh for somebody that emailed me at 2 a.m. PT time,
I'm
right?
a night owl, and 2 of my editors are in Europe, so the combination of that and, uh, my one of my vendors is also in Asia, so when we're by the time we're reaching the night, it's the beginning of their day. I'm typically up pretty late at night. My husband hates it, but
Running on empty, maybe. I don't know. I've got twins, and I struggle to stay up past 9 o'clock.
oh my gosh,
So
how
fair
old are
play.
they? Are they like babies?
Yeah, 18 months old, give or take. Yeah, it's
Yeah, your life has changed.
yeah, being awake at 2 a.m., that's just a dream. That's just a dream for me now. Those were the days. Yeah, those were the days.
It's okay. I'm sure it's worth the sacrifice.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, sometimes. We'll get onto the NWSL, I'm sure, at some point, and all of the build up to that and where you are now. What I would love to do first, if you don't mind, is to kind of roll it right back and talk about what your creative output looked like in your formative years, and then maybe in some sort of linear way we'll make it back to here. Who
Man,
knows?
nobody wants to hear about that. Oh, man, formative years, I mean, ho how far you wanna go, bro?
What
Mm,
yeah, what was your earliest creative leaning, I guess? What were you drawn to as a kid? Was it fashion immediately?
it
Was
was,
it
I don't know if I even understood it as fashion, like, when I was a little girl, I used to have a hard time with my Barbie's clothes, so I was which sounds funny. It sounds like a lot funnier right now just because I'm actually doing this, but I used to really hate the Barbie clothes that were offered because I think when I was a little tiny girl, they were just super girly or just really, the aesthetic was pretty statically pink flowers and, just shit I didn't like, and so I was typically cutting up, like, T-shirts and old fabric my mom might let me have to make them new clothes. Um, I remember, like, I would put my Barbies in my roller skate, instead of in the Barbie car that my dad had bought me because it was pink and it, like, pissed me off. I'm like, "Why can't we," I think I wanted to paint it green or something, and my dad was like, "No, it's too expensive, like, I'm not painting it green," so I just, like, refused to use it. I would put my Barbie in my roller skate because it was black and white, which I
It's
don't
like a
think I
Hell's
understood
Angel.
that
That
back then. Yeah, like, I'm just like, "I need more neutral, bro, like, this hot pink is not doing it for me." So, you know
that was that was so what is it? What does that like inform some sort of study pathway for you as you kind of progress through your teens into adulthood, or is this like is it more of
There was
a
a time where I really wish that it had, the interest had always been there, but I don't think that my family quite understood the pathways of a designer at the time, and so there weren't a lot of people around me who were equipped to kinda point me in a direction of that, and so I definitely didn't dive into it in a way that felt like, "Oh, this could be my job," more than I would do it in ways that were that felt kind of that's not really true. Actually, in high school, I had, like, a streetwear brand that was called Click. I forget about it all the time, but it's also so embarrassing. So, like, junior and senior year, I did have, like, a brand that I kinda had started, and it was, like, a breakout from these guys that I met in, like, 10th grade that worked at, like, a screen printing shop in Maryland, and their brand was called Fat Boy D, and I think I had answered some call to, like, model, or one of them had asked me to, like, model or something stupid, and then they were contemplating starting a women's, like, arm of their brand, Fat Boy D, and however it came up, like, I got brought into that, and I ultimately ended up designing the majority of that stuff and kinda working with them for a couple of years, and it was fun, like, it was a fun kind of I think, start into it, but it wasn't something that I understood back then, again, as something that I could do for real just because there was nobody else really around to kind of propel me past that point, but I would dabble absolutely, like, I worked in retail as a teenager to just feed my clothes fashion addiction back then. Like, I would literally just, like, work in that store so I could buy clothes again. Like, they knew that. I think half of the kids that worked there were doing that. We're just working to buy clothes. And, so that probably was, like, my early days with it. I did wanna go to design school. It was so expensive, and here in the States, it's not, like, offered like it is in other countries where you could just, like, go to design school. So it was, like, super expensive. I didn't come from a lot of privilege, and again, like, people who just didn't quite get it. So, I did not do that outright. It just became something I dabbled in, in my 20s through, like, other ways. And then it kinda resurfaced once I started to DJ because I found myself in places like festivals and big stages where, you know, I appreciated a costume for those moments, so I would make a lot of my own stuff, and there's absolutely some ridiculous outfits in that era, 100%, but it would find its way through wherever I was, whatever I was doing.
Was it a little jarring to start making clothes in adult sizes when you worked with these Fat Boy D guys, jumping from the Barbie dolls up to adult sizes? Just
I don't
wait a
I
minute,
don't
this
think
doesn't
we
fit.
considered it until now, like, at all, but yeah, I don't know. It was, I came up in the era of, like, streetwear that was, like, LRG, and obviously Stussy's always been relevant in that conversation, but, like, um and then there weren't that many women's brands, there were, like, a ton of men's brands, and I remember I used to work for this sneaker boutique. This is kind of at the cusp of streetwear before it kinda turned a mainstream corner because I was, like, 17. And in those boutiques, it would be mostly men's, there'd be these tiny little corners for women's, and then it would be these 3 or 4 brands, Hells Bells, Married to the Mob, like, occasionally, maybe we would get, like, a women's 10 Deep drop. I don't know if you're familiar with 10 Deep, but
No.
I was a 10 Deep Hells Bells Bape girl, and I used to get frustrated that there weren't more women's options, and so I think that was part of when I was in high school, what kind of compelled me to work with the guy, because I was like, "We need more options and things that kind of, like, relate to the group of girls that I'm from." So, I don't know, it didn't really feel connected. I don't think I ever put it together, when I was a little girl until when I was in high school. I think I was just following, the things that interest me at a given.
Following the scent. Yeah, following
Yeah.
the scent, so to speak. I'm finding this really interesting because going back to what you said, there wasn't that kind of, I get through your background, there wasn't that pathway laid out. So I'm assuming you mean like working class background. It's more like just kind of finish school, get a job, and that's the kind of the way you roll down. The creative or the arts is not necessarily something that is encouraged or pursued. That would be true of my background as well. But you're kind of ignoring that and following your nose really is yeah, yeah, yeah. But there was something even then when you're in high school that you felt that there was something missing that was available that should be available to you, and you've I guess heeded that call to make it for it to be you that would fill that gap. So that speaks to me as some kind of as a level of self confidence and maybe a knowing, even though you didn't know that that was eventually the way that you would be going.
Yeah. I mean,
What was it that was keeping you from kind of turning your back
I'd say
on that kind of
confidence
thing?
in this era came later. There's more of a knowing or intuitiveness about it, or just like a pull energetically to move towards a thing than there was confidence at the onset. I think even with my younger days, and I'm remembering so much because I don't have to think about this stuff. Maybe it's just buried so far down in my brain because it feels so embarrassing now. But like I had that line as a teenager, and then I want to say somewhere in my like early 20s, I had another, brand that I made, but I did it in secret, and it was under the name or the moniker Cocker Ave, which the street I grew up on, and it was essentially a series of just really basic screen printed T-shirts that had, like, these colloquialism phrases that we used in the city I'm from, and that brand also. I remember I was, anonymous behind it for a while because women just get treated differently in fashion or anywhere, but especially in streetwear, especially back then with such a male-led space, and I mean, it still is. Um, and so it's really, difficult, I think, for sometimes a brand to cut through if there's a woman at the head of it. So even with that brand, I kinda forgot this too, but even with that brand, I stood, behind it pretty quietly at first, and then I think I stepped in front of it, like, a while later after we had, like, some huge success moments, like, a couple of, like, what felt viral back then, in DC, and so yeah, I think it's just always been this knowing. I can't quite get away from it, like I'll have an idea and I feel compelled to execute it. And so I just do it without necessarily a marriage to the concept of like, oh, I have to do this forever or it is forever. It's just this is my idea. I need to just do it. And that's kind of how it's felt at every point, whenever I'm making anything related to fashion. It's just like, no, I just feel really strong about executing this idea. So we have to do it.
It's like an itch to scratch, so to speak, and then you can move on to the next idea.
Yeah, I think now we're just in the sum of all of those experiences and approaching it with a different lens because I'm a big girl now and have experienced so many things, so I can shape it a lot differently and kind of have an understanding of the lay of the land a bit more than I did back then of just knowing where my opportunities lie. So I think this time around with that dirt, oh man, I didn't start with confidence. It was just a knowing and a compelling sense to execute and do, and then, the confidence absolutely came later, I think.
I guess once the data is there that it's kind of it's working, right?
Yeah,
The
it's
confidence comes
working.
with yeah.
It's
Yeah.
working, and it's for somebody other than myself because I think it's like I think I feel more purposeful in the work in any work that I do when it's not just about me. Like, of course, it's fulfilling to me, and I need it to be that, but it's also more fulfilling when it's not just about me. So I think the way women's sports has showed up has been so, purposeful and so aligned because it's for them, like, they need it too. They need the stories told, and they need better shit. So I'm like, bet. That's easy for me, 2 I'm hitting multiple birds with one stone at that point. So it just made me feel good about what I was doing, and then I started to understand, I was like, "Okay, and I can orient and build a foundation around a real business, that can serve many different people." So, it's been good.
So with that in mind, how does the balance work between the taste and style that you've developed over the years? Uh, yeah, how does it work? Yeah, aligning that with something so established as NWSL, and kind of, I guess, putting your stamp on that without kind of diluting down what NWSL is and what it means to people. Is there a lot of compromise that has to come from your artistic um, output in that?
That's a good question. I think luckily the NWSL, is they're absolutely establishing like their own identity. I do think that they're early in that process of, completely even I think putting a fork in who they are. And there's a lot of ways to iterate that because that umbrella is wide and just getting wider as they add more teams and regions. And I think it's really to me, it's really important, like, when I work with these teams to come in with the intention of wanting to inject the nuance of those regional cultures into the work that we do. And so as much as it's about, like, yeah, I wanna make it trendy and cool, or not even trendy, I think I just wanna make it cool, like, I just wanna make it cool and low key, like, something that feels timeless to this moment, that even if the brand of these teams change their colors or their crests or whatever, the things that we make now will still matter to you, or they'll still, like, hold significance years from now. Like, I'm trying to help strengthen that heritage with the work that I do. So I don't think it's an easy thing per se, more than there has to be just an innate understanding and want to do that each time. Doesn't mean that, like, we hit it 10 out of 10, but I think people completely understand, like, how we show up at this point, and that we're not gonna slapstick a logo on a T-shirt and take, $50 from you for some bullshit that's gonna turn into a wash rag a couple of weeks from now. I want it to be things that people enjoy no matter if they're fans or not, to be honest. And so I've kinda designed from that scope of, like, trying to balance culture and heritage while also trying to appeal to this existing audience and a new one. So, there's no science to it, I can't give away it all because you gotta pay me for that, Joseph, but
Do you feel like, is there a weight that comes with that? Designing for a space that hasn't necessarily had this kind of care and attention before. Do you feel like the sense of responsibility
uh, yes,
or
a little
freedom? Maybe
bit.
there's a freedom to it.
There feels like a sense of responsibility because I wanna do it right, I think if I'm doing it right, then people do naturally, like, see themselves in the work, or will gravitate to it, and so I think as we've continued, that has happened, and so it lets me know that we're on the right path. But it does, I think I only understand it when I'm, like, out in the world with people, and then they're telling me how something made them feel, and I have no concept of that. I design in a bubble, in a vacuum, and I don't know how people feel until it comes out and it's done already. And half of the time I think I'm not trying to absorb too much of the outside noise, but I do appreciate when somebody tells me how impactful something was. And of course, like, I see the Reddit threads sometimes when people are, like, complaining about something, but I also see when they're, enjoying something too. So, um it's tricky, it's a tricky thing as far as, like, pressure is concerned, or the weight, but I do feel like a responsibility maybe to, like, to do it right, to do it with good intentions, and to try my best to, like, represent these teams and these players too, you know? Like, I think that's a huge part of it for me is, like, I want very much for this league, its teams, and its players to be household names, and I don't think you do that through shallow, marketing exercises and shit. I think you have to be trying to tell a story that makes sense for this community that literally just makes them show up every time because they see themselves in it, not because they feel marketed to or sold to. Like, I'm not really trying to sell you shit for real. I'm not really trying to do that. I'm trying to just welcome you into this world and, see who wants to be here or not. And it's for them. Like it's not I don't approach our rollouts from a standard like, oh, this is what the marketing strategy should be, even though I know that's what it is and it's gotta look like that for the business of those teams, but for me, like, I'm always trying to inject, like, the realness of it and, like, even, like, little side quests to it and things that don't feel, like, so dead center, you know? Um, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely does. Yeah, I'm just suggesting we can backtrack slightly
Okay.
to the Reddit threads, and I'm curious, as a creative, how you, I guess, maintain the status quo or a positive mindset when you see some negative comments about something that you've put your heart into.
That's
Because the
funny,
compliments are
actually,
easy to.
actually, and, it's a bit of a smack on your ego when people are, like, upset about something, but I'll say, I'm glad that I was able to start with a team and work with a team and kind of learn and observe through that work first, because sports is just like that in general. It's probably one of like the few professions where every time you show up, the people are going to give you a progress report, a performance review. They're going to tell you how shit you were or how good you played. And every time, in real time, while the game is on, when the game is over.
Yeah.
It's actually so stressful. I'm like, to be an athlete is actually, like, very, very stressful because as much as much as the people will be right there with you when you're winning, they will be on your ass when you're losing too. And so for that, I think I'm already thrown into that by way of this industry and the way it operates. So I can't really feel a way when it gets directed at me too, because that is what this is. I've also had to accept that what I make is not for everybody. And that's totally fine. That's not the point. If I made it for everyone, it would be shit probably, And
Yeah.
so if it's not for you, that's totally fine. I think the only thing that kind of irks me a little bit is like just because something isn't for you doesn't make it shit. And so I kind of see a lot of that sometimes where people are like really asserting how they personally hate a thing. And listen, I live in a world of creativity and there's plenty of things that I personally enjoy. And there's also plenty of things that I will see and go, I don't like that personally. But I understand that that's for somebody. It's just not for me. So I don't
Let
feel,
me just tell them I don't like this. One second. Let me
yeah.
just.
Yeah, it's like it's sometimes you can just tell, like, people just wanna talk shit or maybe they're miserable, whatever. That's none of my business. Because at the end of the day, if the thing is sold out, I don't care. I don't care. Now, if I'm getting a fury of those messages about something, then maybe I'll care, I'll pay attention. It's like, "Oh, okay, maybe there's something wrong here, I do need to pay attention to it." But if it's just people, kicking it on it. It's like, I don't care. I have to, like, let it roll off of me, and thankfully, I've been through enough training of that in the city I'm from. I think we come out the womb, cracking on people, making jokes, and doing all that, so my skin is already pretty thick, I think. So, um,
DC, right? Is it DC?
yeah, yeah.
I spent 2 weeks in DC about 15 years ago in the midst of winter. So yeah, you're made of. It was freezing. You're made of stern stuff. I spent a couple of nights out in Adams Morgan. Was it? Is that where the?
Yeah, you were having a
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. I was drinking some sort of shot out of the like the ketchup squeezes. They just kept filling up these things. That was a lost night. Maybe a lost couple
Yeah,
of nights. Yeah, that's yeah.
Adam's
I got
Morgan.
a good intro to the town there.
Yeah, did you go to the diner on Adams Morgan? Or
It was some sort of dive bar that was like there was some sort of dive bar there that had like
the biggest one
a
is
wonky pause.
Morgan's. Is it Morgan's Organ? Something like that. I forget the name of it, but it had a fun little sign out front of it that looks kinda like a
Yeah,
burlesque girl or something, I forget.
I forget the name, but I knew as soon as I walked in that it was going to end badly for me that night. Yeah. It just had that smell in the air, you know. But you're from there, you know.
Yeah,
Little
yeah.
little English boy like me walking in, I didn't stand a chance. I didn't stand a
My
chance in there.
god. As long as there's no evidence, Joseph, you're good.
No, it's just at the dawn of Instagram. I think that account doesn't even exist anymore. This is fine. Back when everyone was really using filters, you know, really putting that.
That's in all of our favor. None of us need to
Yeah.
be from that. Mm-mm.
No, no, I'm grateful for that. You touched on like the influence or the things that you enjoy outside of fashion that you appreciate or you don't appreciate, but you understand the angles they come from and whatnot. Um, what what mediums do you enjoy? I guess, and like, where do you draw inspiration?
I obviously like love music. Um, and I think I appreciate the artists within that space that can world build around what they make. I spent years, 10 years as a DJ and working in music professionally. And it was a foundational experience for everything that I do right now. So I think music is probably a huge part of that. Spending a lot of time touring, concerts, shows, festivals, all that. So I really, really do particularly love music, the crosshair of music. Um, Medium wise, mm, I mean, I really just like to observe things in real life. Like, there's no specific thing. Like, I like to just be out in the world and kind of observing people and things. Like, those are what interests me the most, probably. Learning about new cultures is probably really important for me, partially because of my music work. Like, when you go to New Orleans, being able to connect with that audience because you know that they listen to bounce music. You know about bounce music, Joseph? What you know about bounce music?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but
Okay.
I am aware of it.
Okay, so, like, that, and then the culture around bounce music. What does that look and feel like? How do those people dress? What does it what are the subgenres within that? And then you can do that in any place. You can go to the Bay Area and get into hyphy music, and then there's a culture around hyphy. And so I think, like, I really like to understand that, especially from, like, communities and music that are innately rooted in, like, Black culture and Black community. Like, that to me is, really fulfilling to me to understand because they're all connected in my opinion, and I think a lot of people is like there's overlap between all of those musical subgenres. So whether it's like the hyphy in the Bay, New Orleans bounce, or DC's go-go music, or Chicago house music, Baltimore Jersey club music, like they're all kind of part of the same, like, I think I don't know if phenotype is the right word to describe it, but they're all to me like they're cousins, they're family. So I like to absorb things from that perspective of like intersectional, like creative things that kind of like surround each other. Because what is music without fashion? What's fashion without music? And then I think, how does that fall in other places? That's usually, like, where a lot of my inspiration is drawn, because I grew up in DC, I grew up in go-go music. I was at the go-go every weekend. The culture has changed a lot, the experience of it is not quite the same as it was when we were kids just because it was criminalized and, like, moved out of DC. There was, like, a lot of political racist gentrification bullshit with that, and I think, like, how I exist adjacent to that, I'm, like, a product of it, and it's one of those things that doesn't get the credit it deserves, it doesn't get the visibility it deserves either because of the regionality of it all and the fact that it never quite went national. So, the influence of DC doesn't get the light it deserves. Which I think that was a big factor in like my DJ work as well as this one now. Like how I show it with Washington Spirit was driven largely by the fact that I want people to know that DC has its own culture that is not about the transplants that come into the city or the monuments or the stereotypical things. There's more to us. And I think that that exact notion exists for a lot of other cities and places that are considered like secondary markets. So a lot of my influence, a lot of like things that I draw from are really like rooted in that.
How does that kind of experience shape you, do you think? Like being a part of a scene like that that is essentially driven out. But I guess they're like the experiences that happen within it are uniting with the people that you're there with, you know, they like bond building. And yeah, I'm just curious in how you think living through something like that, as short lived as it may be, influences you as a person down the line.
Think for me, it just puts a fire under my ass a little bit more probably, because if I don't see us represented, I don't I'm not really of the mind to, like, keep complaining about it. It's like, what are we gonna do? You know, who's gonna do something about it? I think it's so easy to just, like, oh, complain and then sit back and do nothing, and then nothing changes. So, what's the point of that? That's pretty, like, cyclical. And so I think, it just really puts a fire under my ass, and as I realize that we're not the only ones that kind of don't get that shine, it just emboldens me to wanna do it for more people. So, there's, like, layers to that regional cultural work that I think is always underlying in anything that I do because I typically care about, like, that secondary market or that underdog who I know is doing the work. Like, there was a period of time, like maybe like a couple years ago where we were seeing a huge uptick and I think we're still in it a bit like these remixes that you might see on TikTok of mainstream songs that are like a club remix but they're really a Jersey club, a Baltimore club remix. And what we were starting to see was like, you know, producers who are not from those cities, you know, sampling the sound and making similar beats, but then the people who were from those places weren't getting any credit, weren't being pulled in to those same moments or conversations. And that matters, you know, and I know that matters for the sake of like when you look at big DJs who are able to kind of have those big collaborations with the mainstream artists for whatever dance song they made, but oftentimes like a subgenre that's rooted in a Black community, they don't get the same moment. They might not get the same level of collaboration or respect. And it's really unfair. And it's part of this like systemic thing that's like, man, Joseph, we'll be on the phone for another hour if I get into the politics of that. But it's it puts a fire under your ass, you know, to like take control of how your story gets told and to own it and to have autonomy over it. I think that's what it did for me. Coming from DC, I've always felt like, you know, we were misunderstood. You go to New York and then people call us country or you go to different parts of the world and there wasn't always this like understanding or respect for us. And I think, you know, a lot of people are plagued by that. A lot of regional cultures don't get the love that they deserve, and so I think for most of us, it puts a fire under your ass.
There's like a touch of the activist about you. I'm picking up.
A
Like
little
going
bit.
back to the teens, yeah, you know, and you're like, okay, there's this isn't represented in fashion here, so I'm just going to make that. And then there's this happening here, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is putting a fire up your ass to do something about that. And yeah, you assume the responsibility to make something happen or something change. That's I'm wondering which one of your parents is responsible for this edge that you're carrying here.
I don't know,
It's one of them,
I might put it on the boys I grew up with more than my parents, you know, like,
right? Yeah, yeah.
I think, you know, I was definitely raised by a community and, with some specific ways of life that are probably still, you know, influencing me now, so,
Is
yeah.
that is a way of life that's maybe does that exist now, do you think? I'm just something I've been, you know, kind of just mulling around with lately is that, I don't know, that we live in like such a so social media is just omnipresent, you know, I think, you know, I'm gonna show my age a little bit now, but I've been thinking back to a trip to Thailand 20 years ago. I was or 20, yeah, I was 21. I was the other side of the world. It was like there was no smartphones, maybe a year or so down the line they were, no social media. It felt like I was on the other side of the world. It looked like I was on the other side of the world. Now you go to the other side of the world and it's just like, you know, avocados on toast is one basic example. You can get that in this seaside town that I live in, or I can go to Bangkok and it'll be the same thing. Everything's kind of like you see on Instagram is the same thing. Everyone's having a kind of similar experience maybe now that's in generations down. And I'm curious if you think that the culture that shaped you, if it does it exist now, and could we see more people like you coming up, or are those days done?
I think the generation I came up with, I won't say that it's completely non-existent, but mm, the scene that I came from might be just because as I was mentioning earlier about how go-go music got criminalized in DC in the early 2000s. And so that is significant because it changed the youth's experience with go-go music. Um, which means like they didn't have access to it in the same way that I did as a teenager or as a kid. Um, y- it was almost as if you think about like your high school band, how, every high school had maybe their own m- bands or whatever that might perform at dances or perform at school functions or things like that. Like that used to be ever present. Like go-go music and go-go bands were everybody kind of had their own generation of it because the youth were injecting their influences into it. And so like even within go-go music there's subgenres. And so those subgenres are very much attached to the generational shift of whatever's influencing music at that time. And so I would say this current generation did not have the same relationship to it because it was banned from their schools. There were not youth like go-go's or dances outside of their schools anymore for that reason. And then even going into young adulthood. So that also means like they're not making it. You feel me? They're not like
Yeah.
they're not seeing it and they're not making it. So that means like their relationship to it is through their parents or like their older family members who they were the last ones who were able to be as hands-on with it. And so I would say like socially that part of the culture in DC looks and feels very different. I do see people still iterating it, but they're definitely from that older generation. There's a handful, probably very small pool of young kids who are living in it or spending time with it. I do think people visit it, like they will sample a sound and try to inject it. There's an artist right now, his name is Primo Rice. He is amazing in general, like he's a rapper, but I have seen him recently, try to well, not try, but inject go-go music in a way that's very subtle, but I know it because I know the sounds. But if you listen to it, you might not it's not gonna register for you. You might just like it because it's a hip hop song, and it's a good song. But I know the sample. I know the go-go song he's referencing. And so the song is called TCB Style, and TCB is a go-go band. And then he samples one of their records in that song. So I think, like, people are still keeping it alive. Obviously, like, the previous generations are still here, they're still living it and performing it, but they're getting older. And so my hope with even, like, people kind of my hope is that there's this return to like a regional love of the things that are innately from your city in general because the internet kind of flattened that. Everybody got access to everything, and then there's kind of this generalization of a lot of things, and there's not as much specific, especially as far as like that cultural element is concerned, to an area anymore, or even necessarily a respect. And so I do hope that there's a time where there's like a return to that in general, where there's just this innate love and, innovation around like things that are innately like from a place. I feel like I got
Yeah.
so far away from your question.
No, that really struck a chord, didn't it? Something resonated with you there. You went in,
No, I
and I
care
think you
about
really,
it.
yeah, I could tell that was really coming through. And I think you used the term flattened it. That's described it in a much better way than I could. Yeah, there's just everything's a little bit more generalized, and the
Yeah.
texture is taken out of local communities, and maybe the bottom falls out of it, and we do see a return to that as an act of rebellion, maybe of the kind of globalization that we experience.
I think what people forget, and this is again like on a tangent, but it's something I've been thinking a lot about recently, just in my work in a general sense. But people, it's funny to me how much we, and I'm guilty of this, oftentimes will enjoy a thing, but then the moment it becomes a trend, we kind of hate it. However, trends are typically how we get like innovation and spin-offs of like a subversion of anything. And so we kind of need that. You kind of need every era to recreate or completely create a brand new trend so then they can have their relationship to the thing. And so it's really important because then out of that you do get this handful of, people who do elevate that thing or innovate it. And that's like when you look at any like I was reading this thing about Donald Byrd once, and he was like a classically trained musician, I forget which instrument, but or like a classically trained jazz musician, and he was making jazz music for a long time. But then he started experimenting with new sounds within jazz, and he was calling it something else. Like I can't remember exactly what he was calling it, but it was like jazz, like hyphenated with something, and he got so much ridicule for it. And then he really was at the cusp of like disco and that funk kind of shift, but he was at the beginning of it. And so people weren't really understanding what he was doing. And because his original audience was jazz, they hated what he was making because they felt like he was disowning, the genre he came on. But when in reality, he was just part of a pioneer of a new genre. But you kind of like needed this influx of creators, of people who were like experimenting in a trend where you actually get like real tight shit out of it based on this injection of like all of these people kind of creating in a new similar way. So I really been like spending time on that about how things really innovate something brand new from something that was. And I don't think there's like a full understanding of how that happens for most people. So I actually do enjoy trends. I pay a lot of attention to them for that reason.
There's a lot of bravery to that, do you think? Like using
Absolutely.
Donald
You
Byrd
have
as,
to
as an example.
abandon ship. You gotta abandon the thing
Yeah.
you know or the thing that looks like it's working. Yeah,
Where
100%.
where does that where do you think that kind of I don't know if desire is the right word, or even just the thought to do that, because it is leaving the known to try something new that could completely fall on its face, or it does change things forever and influences even more people than it could have done in your existing genre. Could that be something that's innate that is a calling that you respond to, or just a need for change? I don't know. Is that something that you feel yourself with your own work?
Yeah, I think for a lot of creatives, it's just an innate feeling. There's just like some compelling feeling to do something else more different your way, whatever the case may be. And I think it's all of our responsibilities in some shape or another to like follow that until you figure out exactly like how you're supposed to be existing in it. Um and so yeah, for me it absolutely was this internal knowing because I didn't want to do any of this shit. Like
Yeah.
I don't wanna do any of this. I didn't want to start a brand. I didn't wanna quit my job. I didn't wanna do any of it because it just felt like a terrible idea. I was like, "This is a bad idea. The economy is in the dumps." Um, people are getting laid off everywhere. It just felt like a bad idea. I was like, "This is a terrible idea, but I have to do it." Like, I don't know what's gonna happen on the other side of this, and I think the last time I felt like this, it was when I had quit my job to start to DJ, and then everything just kind of clicked and did well. So, luckily, I have been through this with myself to know that there's the other side and there's always more on the other side. So, you kinda just do it anyway despite, like, being scared or not being sure or all of the things because there's more than what the people are offering to you. Like there's more than what's being handed to you, and you can absolutely like do what you want, make what you want to make, and figure out how to like build a life around that if you're determined to do that. And so I yeah, yeah.
Are you familiar with The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield?
I'm not.
It's he's an American author, and he's written some fiction related stuff. But this The War of Art is I've only read it recently, but it's regarded as one of the best self growth books going. And he talks about resistance with a capital R. That everybody feels it to some degree, but that everybody is born with something that they have to do, and it's like kind of their responsibility to make that happen. And many people live what he calls a shadow career, so it might be something that's just adjacent to what it is that your heart sings for, you know. I'm just curious if that's kind of where, if that kind of taps into what you were feeling when you were, you're a DJ and you're doing this for a period of time, and then you kind of, even though you're saying, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be setting up a company, and this is all a bad idea, but you're doing it anyway. Is that big? Do you subscribe to the fact that it could be something completely out of your control that is just forcing you that way, and you're just basically the vehicle that's
You're trying to
basically
impose
driving
me
it?
right now.
Do you believe in the divine and spiritual? Before we go, Domo, can I talk to you about our Lord and Saviour, Jesus Christ, for 5 minutes?
Great interview.
5 months I've waited for this.
Great
5 months
interview.
I've been waiting to get you into
Great
this corner,
interview.
back you into this little...
Okay. No, that was funny because, like, yeah, I do. Yeah, I believe there's a sky daddy, you know?
Yeah. That's one of the best ways I've heard it described.
It's so funny. Like, anytime it's
Yeah.
like, it doesn't matter if it's like, even when it's derogatory, it's still fun. It's funny. It's always
Was
funny.
that one of your T-shirts that you made with like the colloquialisms on it back in the days?
Yeah, it's fucking hilarious. It's always funny, and I'm never offended because also, like, your relationship with, like, spirituality is your own. Like, also, watching people try to impress that shit on others is so weird. Like, bro, just, like, you know?
Yeah.
It's okay, everybody.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like, honoring intuition, there's a spiritual frequency, in relationship to that, and, Imma leave it there. I don't think
Yeah.
there's been any time where
You're tuned into Sky Daddy FM. This is Domo Wells.
Yeah,
tuning in from the Pacific
don't
Coast.
get me struck down, Joseph, damn.
Hey, should we talk about soccer for 5 minutes?
For, like,
actually?
2 seconds.
Yeah. This is the way these sometimes go. Sometimes we don't even get onto it. It's the football podcast. It isn't about football at all. Do you like it?
So this is your side job. You're a comedian. No, I like it. I love it. It's so fun.
That's a relief because you're kind of stuck with it now. You kind of,
We're locked in at this point. It'd be crazy. We're like, I fucking hate soccer, bro. This shit sucks. I think it's fun. I think it's actually more fun than a lot of team sports because, like, the way people turn up in the stadiums is nuts. Like, it's actually insane. I love how they, like, the fan sections will coordinate those huge banners, or even, like, the teams that stand on their political messages and let their fans express that during the games. Like, it's wild, like, there's, like, a real, um, familiarity there and, like, relationship there that I can understand. So, I really appreciate, like, that level of community around the sport. Um, I think that I got pulled into it in 2 different ways, and I talked about this in one that was, like, kind of embarrassing because when I was a kid, my introduction to soccer was through Victoria Beckham. and and it was largely because of the way she dressed, and obviously after she married David, like, when she would wear, like, England's gear and stuff, and she would get those shirts chopped up and be making them, like, hyper femme and cool, and so I was really into that aesthetic of it because I hadn't seen it done that way, and then I think, you know, when I was much older, because it wasn't necessarily something that was particularly prominent in my community. Like, as a young Black kid growing up out just outside of DC, PG County, um, it was soccer wasn't that present, and I think in America in general, like, it's a understated sport up until now, which is crazy because it's obviously popular everywhere else. But, I probably got back into it in my early 20s because I used to be the culture ambassador for DC United, which is our men's team, and, that kind of, like, brought me back into it through the MLS originally because I would be spending a lot of time with them at their games and, like, just, you know, trying to bring kind of awareness to that team and relatively through the community that I was part of into that team. But coming into it now is like totally different, like a completely different relationship, partially just because like the level of how these women were so underserved, you know? And so I have like a different feeling about it all because I'm just determined to be part of what gets them where they need to go. Um, but yeah, those are probably like my main points of reference.
How does it feel to be a part of the wider story? I guess you know you've got that goal. That's your mission, and you're kind of I guess you're going to unavoidably change the way the game is seen in some way and bring people into it because of your influence. Does that how do you feel about that kind of impact on its legacy? I do serious questions too.
Reading that, you know, I am just happy to be helping at the end of the day. Like I'm trying not to center myself in it too much because it's not about me. And so I think I just am happy that these women see themselves in the work, the teams and leagues appreciate it, and the fans, like, wanna see it continue. I think as long as those feelings are there, then my work should continue. If there ever were a time where that, you know, dissipated, then it would change maybe, but I think I'm just glad that it's serving in multiple ways other than just, like, my own personal fulfillment and enjoyment. Because when I started that dirt, we weren't in relationship to sports yet, and it felt like something was missing. Now it feels like, oh, we're exactly where we're supposed to be. We're serving our purpose and how we need to be of service. So I think as long as it's doing that, then we're doing a good job.
How does that work? How has that kind of paid you back in terms of uh well-being? I guess would be
I don't work
the
for
way to
free, Joseph.
But have you noticed that has there been any kind of not in monetary terms? We've all got I know you've got those bills to pay, but yeah, have you felt that kind of because you're of service as you say, and you see the impact it's having, does that then in turn give you a sense of fulfillment or excitement or both?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always happy when the stuff sells out. You know, that's always good news for
Yeah.
me. Uh,
Yeah.
so, um, I think monetary wise, like, we're at the point now where there's so much inbound that I have to say no to stuff, you know, like, I can't do everything, which is, I think, a good place to be, so I'm just super grateful. If I'm being honest, I'm super grateful. It was not something I necessarily expected or was anticipating. I absolutely thought at the beginning of last year that we were gonna have to keep, like, banging down doors and convincing people that, you know, we are worthy of doing the work and to work with us, but luckily, thankfully, you know, this league, the National Women's Soccer League, was ready to, you know, take some risk on us. Like, I think our big exercise was doing Complex Con with them. Are you familiar with Complex Con?
No.
So it's kind of like a huge trade show of sorts, but also with a concert. You know, like big music performances. It's billed pretty big. All the major brands show up there. Nike does a big exercise, and then there's like a bunch of other brands that essentially like do pop-up booths. It's for a weekend. This last year, maybe the last 2 years, they've been doing it in Vegas. And so it's a huge exercise, it's very expensive, but there's a ton of people there. It's a great place to get some visibility, especially in the streetwear market because Complex Magazine, familiar with Complex Magazine though, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So this is their thing. Like Complex Con
Right.
is their thing. So
The
and they
clue
do
was there
them
all along.
yeah, they do them, in different countries and all the time, like, it's a huge thing, and so, even that was, like, a huge exercise of, like, faith and trust for us to, like, launch our, all teams capsule with because it's not expensive to do, and they kinda came in like, "Yeah, we're gonna sponsor this thing with you, and we really care about being positioned in this way," so wait, did I answer your question? Feel like I keep, like, veering off.
No, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, like, and this is all pretty fresh, right? This is what this launched in January, was it? Have I got that right?
So
Of
technically,
this
we
year?
launched it in November because that's when we did the preview at ComplexCon last fall. That was right before the end of the season, and then we released the capsule in February, early Feb,
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
because like, we weren't selling anything at the preview, we were just showing it, and then, yeah, we followed up with the full release.
So it's pretty early doors in that respect. So is it too soon to be thinking further ahead in how this evolves, or are you just kind of
Yeah, I
basking
mean,
in
there's
the?
plenty of teams and leagues all over the world, so we're gonna see where
That's
it
true,
takes
yeah.
us, you know?
Ah, okay. Wink, wink. I like that little. This time next week on No Place Like Home. Here we
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Love that. I mean, it's a really fascinating collaboration to see play out. I guess. I mean, it does change things, I guess, and opens up a lot of doors for other people as other brands, I guess, different partnerships that you don't even think about yet. I mean, this does really kind of move the needle in that way. So I guess that brings us nicely back to Donald Byrd and how you are arguably an innovator in your own medium.
If you say so, Joseph.
I'll say so. I'll put that on the record. I'll say so.
Thank
Listen,
you.
I'm really conscious of time, and I know you must have church soon because I know I have. So we should probably wrap this up. And I've got bed in 30 minutes. I'm going to bed in
People
30
are gonna
minutes because
think
I'm
you're
on.
serious, you better edit this, okay?
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's
Gonna
fine. It's
go
absolutely fine.
over their head. They're gonna think this is
I could
religious
listen
propaganda, Joseph.
yeah. Just working through just through the earwaves there. Just two compliments rather before I go. Your skin is exceptional. I can tell through a pixelated screen that you've got some mad routine going on over there.
Thanks so
I don't know
much,
what it
I've been
is.
working on it.
It's like porcelain.
Period.
Skin like porcelain over there, Domo. Yeah.
My esthetician would love to hear that because she dragged me the last time I was there. Dragged me. This is a word to everyone. Don't overuse the retinol, people, okay? That's my one warning to everyone. I was tearing my skin up. My skin was all dry. She was like, "Girl, your face looked like the Sahara Desert. What is going on?" And so, had to make some adjustments. So, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I can see that all the way from over here. And finally, that accent, arguably the coolest accent in 106 episodes. So,
My God, I didn't even know I had an
congratulations on
accent.
that award as well. That's two awards, two unique awards
It's
to
not
go
it's
with
not
what.
it's not the shittiest American accent, you know?
No, it's a good one. And I know you've got a husband and I've got a partner. This is not an attempt at some
Yeah.
kind of a long distance relationship. Credit where it's due.
No worries. No one's coming to beat you up, Joseph. It's okay.
Whew, thank you. Domo, thanks so much for this. I really appreciate it. I'm really glad we got to do that. And yeah, appreciate
Same.
the
It's probably the best
flexibility.
interview I have had. Wonderful.
Oh, good. I'll keep that bit in. That's my social clip right there.
Yeah.
Take care. Thanks again so much. Really enjoyed it. I knew I would. I had a feeling. Take care. Bye bye. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can follow MPLH Studio wherever you listen and find more work from today's guest in the show notes. I'm Joseph Fordham. See you next time.